we are once again joined by Mr. David Ellis. David, let's go ahead and unmute yourself. How's it going, David?
Hey, everyone. How's it going? I am in another part of the world again.
Doing very good. We're talking deep into consciousness.
You guys were talking about Lucia Light.
Yes.
So I have questions.
Okay, let's go.
Ooh, inquiring minds want to know.
Okay. So the first question I guess I want to ask is, so I've been experimenting with it myself. It has a definitive effect on the nervous system. Okay. Now, depending on the programs, you see there's an option to make your own program. You want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with that, actually. So you can program the light to different frequencies. And it's very fascinating because, you know, there's a part of our brain that really wants to keep things very simple. Like we want to know, okay, if I'm at this frequency, what is that doing to my brain? And for people who understand about brain waves, they're like, oh, so I understand the Lucia Light. It's putting you into the theta state, or it's putting you into the high alpha. And really, what the different brain waves are is just they're all co-occurring at the same time. So even if you go into more of an alpha or theta state, for example, that just means that brain wave is going higher frequency, you know, or not higher frequency, but higher amplitude within your brain. The difference with the Lucia is that you can get to states of consciousness where your different brain waves are actually in harmony. And that harmonization is similar to like when you're playing a singing bowl and you have these different harmonics coming off of it. And there's also amazing sound harmonics that can be achieved that monks can create through their voices, for example. And these harmonics are really kind of the pathways to opening into more expanded states of consciousness that are realigning our frequency. So making your own sessions can be really fun because what you can do is actually tune in on what specific frequencies you resonate with that open you up. So there's really interesting, I've been working with the sound healer named David Gibson out in San Francisco at the Globe Sound Healing Institute. And he actually has a theory about sound, that everyone has a home note, so that there's one specific frequency in sound that your home note actually, you know, reharmonizes your field, I would say, better than any other note that you could listen to. So you could play a bunch of different singing bowls and you play this one singing bowl and you're just like, that's it, take me, you know. And in a way, I feel like the Lucia has a similar effect, that there's certain frequencies that actually resonate with different people's fields. And this may be in relation to what needs to be balanced within their field. And that there's a loose connection there with the like brainwave state that we initially go into. For example, if you have a very busy mind, then actually sometimes creating frequencies that start with beta rhythm can actually get people a little more drawn into the light because it's kind of meeting them where they're at. And then you can actually create a session that goes from frequencies pulsating at beta frequencies into alpha, and then down into theta, and then even into delta. Other, you know, programs start with more like delta pulsations and are say maybe more for astral projection, but then you actually have to be a lot more present with staying in that space and not resisting these initial pulsations. So there's just all different ways that you can interact with the Lucia Light and through programming it. And actually, excitingly, in March, which is coming very soon, they're releasing a whole new thing, which is the controller, which is going to be like a Game Boy like controller where you can actually surf the frequencies yourself. So beyond, you know, you can create your own sessions with the software by really choosing specific frequencies, but then you can also use, or you will be able to use the controller to find these frequencies based off of what you're feeling and seeing in response to them, and then stay in them longer. I mean, ideally for me, there is like an aspect of your conscious awareness that would be involved in choosing the frequencies. However, and so, you know, there's another aspect that's like, if you do a pre-programmed session, you can just really let go into it and not choose. But I'm excited about the potentials of kind of going through, especially with the practitioner system or with the help of a practitioner, and seeing what frequencies are really resonating with you. And then from there, choosing a, you know, set of frequencies and creating a session that would specifically work with you and your own frequency. And, you know, that's a lot of frequency mumbo jumbo, but basically there's tons of different sessions already pre-programmed on there. And with the practitioner session, then you can choose, develop your own sessions as well.
So Allison, may I help give the audience a broader view of what you just said?
Sure, thank you.
Okay, so we're going back to school. Remember Psych 101. You got the conscious mind or the ego. And now whenever we say ego in psychotherapy, we mean the level of mind that you're using to listen to me right now. It's called the ego, the conscious mind. I'm going to layer it on what she just said. The subconscious mind is the part of your mind that houses your memories, your body's unconscious processes, and also your emotions, okay? The emotion reactions.
Mm-hmm.
And deeper than that is something called your superconscious mind or your super ego. You got your super ego, and that super ego, basically what it does, it's the part of your mind that's exactly the same with everybody. Inside of it, inside that place is what you would call mankind. Okay, so what she's describing are states of mind. So at the conscious level, that is the part of mind you're using to speak to me, you have something called beta wave frequency. It's the electricity that your mind is running at, the frequency it's running at. When you go into a more daydreaming state, you have something called alpha. Okay. Hypnosis resides at the theta state of awareness. Okay, you got delta, and some people say that there is a deeper state than that called plenary or somnambulist state. So it's really quite deep. But you pass through these levels of mind, and what the light does, it entrains your mind, right, to these different frequencies. So as opposed to those of you who have trouble going to sleep, those of you who have trouble getting restful sleep, it's because you have trouble passing through those frequencies of mind. You have trouble falling into, I shouldn't say falling, more like rising in consciousness. And so what this light does, it takes the guesswork, the hit or miss out of sleep therapy as well. Okay? Because when you're under that light, you will experience relaxation by a process of entrainment. You will. It's not a matter of I might, you will. So you could choose. I could take some pills, or I could just sit in front of a light for a bit. I would highly recommend the light because it's not only will it entrain your mind is connected, as I said earlier, your subconscious mind also houses your body's unconscious processes. If you affect the subconscious mind through frequency, you can have positive effects on your body's unconscious processes. Because for sure, there's a lot of things out here that are having negative effects on your body's unconscious processes. So that's why you should buy the light. I wanted to ask you a question, actually, Allison. Yeah. So we have different kinds of lights out there. We have like Lucia Light and we have other lights. What differentiates the Lucia Light from what is the other light that's out there? The Ajna light, for instance.
Yeah, there's the Ajna and the Pandora star. There's a few different lights out there, and the Lucia light's very different because it has the central halogen bulb. Mm-hmm. And that might not sound like a big difference, but if you think about how our body receives light, right? There's a huge difference, as a lot of people know, between just like LEDs or looking at your phone and looking at the sun, right? If you're out in the sun, you're getting vitamin D, you're actually having a whole different range of processes going. That's a natural response, right? And there's a warmth mm-hmm. to it and all of that. In the Lucia light, the halogen doesn't quite have the same brilliance and wide spectrum as the sun, but it has a much wider spectrum. And that wider spectrum of light that opens a space actually allows your body to respond, and really your frequency, like you can go deeper in. And yes, it has infrared light as part of the spectrum, and that infrared light is very relaxing. As well. And so that really opens you up so that when the frequencies of the LEDs start flickering, that you can kind of go through with a true nervous system relaxation. Through just pulsing LED lights, there's actually certain kind of irritation or activation in a negative way of your nervous system to the light. And over time, this can be detrimental and destabilizing or just not as beneficial. With the Lucia Light, having that really like that solid halogen opening that space is very feminine as well. It's like something that holds you. That warmth, the thermal aspect of the light is like, you know, laying under the sun in the light. And that also really allows your nervous system to relax in a different way because it's similar to the sun. Beyond that, the Lucia is actually made, it isn't made in China and it doesn't fall apart. It's actually designed, produced in Austria. Yeah, actually recently just got another email from someone who said they had ajna and it's broken. 2 different lights have broken on them and they're just sick of it, you know? So it's like, if you're actually really into these technologies too, for me, I feel very passionate about not just like buying whatever gadgets are out there, but really looking deeply into the process of creation. And in Austria, they use materials that are created locally. They, you know, work with high quality labor. They actually pay people living wages to do this type of work. It's not in a factory. And if you think about the energetic implications of that, you know, it's quite ironic to me when people just go out and buy, you know, cheap technology. And I have an iPhone, so I'm not, you know, judging people. I'm just saying.
Yes, I remember you have an iPhone.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you were there with me. But yeah, you know, so we have these, there's certain things that, you know, are hard to get in the fair labor world. But if you really, again, kind of embodying these things that we care about, you know, choosing what type of things that we're supporting does make a difference energetically as well. And if you think about like a portal, right? This light's a portal. Would you choose, do you want the cheap portal that's made in a factory with people, you know, in really intense conditions? Or do you want like a portal that's actually created by a neurologist and psychiatrist who are aware of energy and how the brain works and dedicated to, you know, consciousness expansion from you know, more informed space, who are maybe using a wider frequency of light because your body's gonna relate to that. And so yeah, those are kind of main differences. It's like using the central halogen, the type of programming that's possible and available to the actual user experience is quite different. You know, those are great differences.
Okay, I want to answer something in the chat that's happening right now.
Uh-huh.
Can I answer it for you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Irene, the difference between getting light from the sun and using this light is because the light from the sun the sun shines on everyone. This light is specifically used for therapy. Okay? Now you could get the entire spectrum from the sun, but you can't filter out the spectrums that you don't need.
And
right?
Frequencies that are coming through are not just going to be from the sun. So the sun's very important. This is not to like take away the sun, but the specific frequencies that can be, you know, come at you create a type of entrainment that can't happen from just being outside in the sun. I mean, if you want to get a little taste of what it's like, I highly recommend going out in the sun, closing your eyes and doing a little of this, and you'll get the tiniest taste of what it is. But it takes energy and effort to kind of keep your hands going, and you don't know what exact frequency you're shining at here. Whereas this is a type of technology that can take some of the power of the sun, and then having your eyes closed, having this, like the specific pulsations can take you to those other states.
Okay. All right. So tell us in terms of the release, the catharsis that one gets from using the Lucia Light. I've used one. I'm looking at one right now, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just turn this around. Let the audience see in my office. That is a Lucia Light.
Oh, there it is. Hello.
And we do. Did you say hello to the lights?
Yes.
Allison? So this is a Lucia Light. We use it in the office. And it's actually very good for people with traumatic disorders. I want you to speak a little bit about that, because we've actually been seeing some help from that. And I'm a hypnotherapist, so that takes guesswork out of hypnotherapy. Oh, for the people who are hypnotherapists, for the people who do affirmations, that takes the skill level out of it. There is no hit or miss with that light. There is only, it just works. And that's basically why it is that she's promoting this on this network, because it just works. As a hypnotherapist, I have used that light on myself and others. There's no skill level involved. The induction is assured. So if you're a beginning hypnotherapist, not that you should rely on the light, but I think if you're a beginning hypnotherapist and you have somebody with real trauma issues, the induction is absolutely important.
Yes. Yeah, and it's just a tool, you know, so you look at all these things and, you know, already it's coming up in the chat, like how much money does it cost, all this, right? So there's all these different ways to look at all of this. There's different tools, right, that we can use to help achieve altered states of consciousness, to help heal trauma, to help restore wellness within our system. I mean, one of the most simple tools is breath. You know, I first invite you to start working with your breath. Another one is meditation. From there, we can also go to something like the Lucia Light. A series of light sessions should cost you, you know, under $1,000, which if you've been in some severe traumatic state and you can shift from being in a fight or flight, having nightmares and like living in that type of reality to coming back into your body, you know, I think that's a pretty good investment in yourself, you know, and that's what it really does, is it's like helping you when you're in fight or flight, you're in traumatic reaction, which can be, you know, whatever it is. For some people, a very small thing can come up, or at some point in your healing process, sometimes things come to your consciousness that you had suppressed, you know, and that can cause trauma. There's all these different ways in which trauma can, you know, come into our life. And at some point, if you're tired of being a victim of this, and whatever level that is, you find yourself yelling in traffic or whatever way that you're expressing these like unhealed traumas, going into the light experience can really help you shift from that fight or flight state into the, you know, from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic, and reminding your person or your whole being of how to get into that relaxed space, reminding you that it's safe to be there, and starting to find joy and remembering like who you are and beyond simply this experience.
Allison, do you, what is the light contraindicated for?
The
Who
light's
can't
not,
use it?
yeah, it's not really recommended due to the stroboscopic function. People who respond negatively to strobe lights, you know, they can't go to you know, concerts or things like that with flashing lights would not be the best for, you know, for the light. Other than that, it's really good for most people. There's, I mean, if you have a really intense heart condition, or if you have any kind of neurological response to flickering lights, it's not the best, but for everyone else, it's a really great and interesting tool.
Okay.
Epilepsy is the main contraindication, though.
Yeah, so that's a negative response to flashing light is epilepsy. And actually, interestingly, of people who have epilepsy, it's only about 10% of them have a response to flickering light. But obviously, if you are epileptic or if you had a seizure in the past, then we would recommend that you go to a neurologist. And, you know, it's covered under most insurance. Actually get a little checkup of your brain, which might be a good thing if you have epilepsy anyway. You kind of see what's going on there and see what your triggers are. But that's really a small percentage of people. And, you know, for people like that, then sound might be a better tool of working with frequency that way. But for a lot of different conditions, whether it's depression, you know, all these things need to be first looked at as actually just an imbalance, right? There's lots of different imbalances that we can go through, and kind of like what we were talking about earlier in terms of not holding to somebody as being a certain way for their whole life. You got to hold that to yourself and say like, okay, look, even if you've been depressed for a while or this or that, you can choose that this is your forever reality, or you can decide to start shifting that. And things like depression or anxiety are kind of symptoms of some unhealed aspects within yourself, right? And so if we start working with tools such as the Lucia Light, we can be more in touch with that place in our hearts, or solar plexus or wherever we're holding these things, to release them to become more of who we truly are and not an expression of an imbalance.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
How does someone who is new to the light, who may not be a professional, let's say I bought a light and it's in my house, the light has a pilot function.
Mm-hmm.
Please describe to us what a typical session is like, so that people who are really newbies don't go into the Firefly program right away. Right.
Well, there's a lot of different sessions. I mean, we always do like little demonstrations first. So, right, there's a 2-minute demonstration session. So you get a little taste. It's like dipping your toe into the light water. And so you kind of first see there what that feels like. And for some people, that 2 minutes is actually pretty intense, and they don't need to choose a session that's really strong. And there's some, there's a whole guide of different sessions and different intensity levels. So you can kind of choose as you go through. Or you can haphazardly try them like David. No, but then there's a stronger demonstration session that's about 5 minutes. So if you pass the first 2 minutes and you say, hey, for me, which again, stronger is not better, it's just finding your own resonance, right? Then you could do the 5-minute stronger one. And if you like that, then you can do some of the stronger sessions, or you can say, well, that was a little crazy. I actually like it a little gentler. I feel like it can go deeper into the experience. And maybe you could choose a medium intensity session. And really choosing the intensity is what it's about. Like the different programs have names, which are kind of interesting and curious, but they're also just kind of looked at as like songs, right? So again, some songs will resonate with you more than others. Some people really like intense programs, and some people like gentler programs. Some people like to stay in one frequency longer. It's kind of like a dimensional world that you can stay into for a while. And then, most of the sessions are about the longer sessions are about 20 minutes, between 20 minutes and an hour. And there is a function. So if you're receiving a session from somebody, the person that's the guide to the session can pause it at different moments, and you can stay in that certain frequency, intensity, pulsation for a while. So you can actually make a 20-minute session into 40 minutes or so on. But really, there's no benefit. I've had people say, hey, well, I love it so much. Can I go for like 4 hours? And yeah, sure. If that feels resonant to you, there's no contraindication to that. But really what we recommend is really, coming up with an intention of something that you want to energetically work on and release before a session, and working on that over a period of time, right? So we're all about actually making incremental but lasting changes in your life. And so if you do 20 minutes of Lucia Light, 4 times a week, 3 times a week, something like that, over a 6-week period, you're going to find a much, stronger impact. We recommend like at least 6 sessions to really start restructuring your nervous system.
The restructuring of the nervous system, that goes not through entrainment, because the majority of Lucia is not entraining you. It's helping you discover the many variables of frequency you could have simultaneously going. And would you expand on the non-entrainment entrainment process?
Yeah, exactly. So as I mentioned earlier, and as David was talking about in terms of these different brainwave states, the ultimate, the goal of the Lucia is not to like force you. So there's things like called binaural beats, right? Where you have 2 different frequencies and your brain is kind of entrained or like forced into the space between the 2. The Lucia is different. If you think of Lucia more like a piece of music, if you listen to a piece of music that you really love, you kind of start going into this altered state of consciousness because you really can like feel that music. You know what I mean? Now imagine that multiplied by 1,000, and then you have a Lucia Light experience. The song is actually the light. So they're all actually interrelated in a way that's very beneficial. And now that can also, there was actually a study done comparing it to psilocybin, which is a plant medicine, also known as magical mushrooms. And that if someone takes psilocybin, then multiple parts of their brain are being activated at the same time, right? So it's really about as we spoke of in the beginning of the show, these altered states of consciousness, expanding your perception of what's possible. Now, if you think about taking an entheogen, anything outside of yourself, there's always reactions to this, right? A lot of, these type of medicines can increase your serotonin or dopamine levels in your brain. Now, if you have a sensitive brain, or, really anyone, it's taking you on a bit of a ride, right? So it's going to be different than the Lucia experience because it's not inviting you there and helping you find the pathway yourself, which is technically more similar to what happens in a meditation. Taking an entheogen is really taking you there. Now, some people find that really beneficial because they have a chance to let go into that space and are really taken there. I mean, that can also be addicting because, again, it's not you ultimately doing the work, and the work is not the actual experience itself, but how you integrate the experience. So some people can have these far out experiences with entheogens because, they're really being taken there. And a lot of that is hormonal as well as activating multiple parts of your brain concurrently. With the Lucia Light experience, you can look at it as kind of the cleaner version in a sense, because it's just light, right? So it's activating all these different aspects and areas of your brain, but you're not going into an altered space in terms of being like, woo, or like, I can't think much, or, you're there, you're rational, your mind is still working. You're getting very relaxed and open into this other space, but you're not in a woo-woo zone, you're very focused. And so that actually helps increase your clarity, creativity, and openness, because you're not in a cloud of marijuana or in a, totally crazy other state where you're going to be there for 12 hours. And then, all kinds of stuff can happen in that environmentally, or, depending
But Allison,
for you. Yes.
Well, I discovered a contraindication.
Yes.
Maybe you shouldn't use the Lucia Light in conjunction with anything else.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a very good one. I mean, we highly recommend that you experience the Lucia Light on its own, because what it is something that's so powerful, right? Like, the reason why I'm so passionate about it, one of my main passions for the Lucia Light, is the fact that it's helping you see that you can do it. You can come into this expanded state of consciousness. You can channel through your higher self. You can be in a clear state of awareness without taking anything. Plant medicine can be very beneficial for helping open those doors. But, working with something like the Lucia Light is more about integrating what's happened in these huge experiences into your body, right? Coming back into the body from having these out there, experiences, and being able to integrate that into your nervous system so that, you feel safe, you are well, everything's going to be okay. And without this basic integration, we can just be reeling around in our reality and not be grounded. And so the Lucia Light is an invitation to kind of come back. Not to say that you can't go out there with the light, but what it's doing on the physical level is integration. And that's what a lot of people need. I mean, a lot of people come and say that they want this, full-on DMT experience from the Lucia Light, and what they get is a relaxation. And, for me,
or they fall asleep.
Yeah, or they fall asleep. And, and that's okay. Like, that is the first step. If that's where you're at in that moment and that's what you need, that's what the light's going to give you first. And I think that's really awesome, because I do know that, with medicines, if you've been up for days and then you take some medicine, is that really helpful to you to go on this crazy experience? No, it doesn't. The medicine's not really listening to exactly what your nervous system needs, right? It's just taking you on the journey. And the Lucia is primarily about nourishing the nervous system and building up that, clarity within your system and realignment, so that you could actually journey from a clear space. And that's how we have to journey soberly, is from a clear space. If you're not in a high frequency, you're not going to be able to have a meditative journey where you go anywhere.
I actually wanted to make a note here, and I want to speak to a part of the of your market. A lot of people have been into spirituality, but they haven't had a lot of spiritual experiences. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, they're always waiting for the experience that never comes.
They're always waiting for the experience that never comes. Now, you have a choice. You can wait for the next 20 years, or you could experiment and do something different.
Sure.
Okay? You can do something different. So I can pretty much tell you, for the people who astral project or would like to astral project, or astral project spontaneously, that I'm just putting that out there, that will be the most stable astral projection that you will ever get. That will be the most stable, because I know some people who are in the audience have an issue with that. Also, catalepsy and catatonia. Okay? Okay? A lot of people have catatonia when waking up, and it's because of poor integration. And that has actually, that does help. The light does help. I can pretty much tell you that. For those of us who don't know what catatonia is, I will go through it. You wake up, you can't move. Does it sound familiar to anybody?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that frozen kind of state and stuff like happened to me.
What we call sleep paralysis. Okay? The scientific explanation is that your nervous system is on a delay, so you don't move, right? The light does help with various sleep disorders, but mostly the light gives you exactly what you need, which is why we don't want to make a comparison to the sun, but the light gives you exactly what you need if you're running a program. And some very bright people put it together for the light to be flickering at exactly the frequency that induces different brainwave patterning. Okay, so for myself, it has regulated my sleep quite a bit. Okay, that's the going to sleep part and the waking up part. For other people, it has deepened their meditation. It has deepened their meditation. For those of you who are listening, because we're talking to an audience who's mixed, but this light can deepen your meditation. Would you like to know part of the reason why your meditation you may have been experiencing plateaus in meditation? It's because your nervous system gets used to a certain amount of induction. When you are a meditator, you must necessarily try different things, whether you move your location, okay, whether you point towards the east, whether you meditate by a seaside, meditate by a river, try different things, okay? Because if you're in the same room with the same incense stick, doing the same thing over and over again, you will get the same results. So what the light is offering you is a result that is actually definitively proven, scientifically proven. And I wanted Allison to just tell us about, where does the concept of flickering light come from? I believe I read something that you wrote some time ago. So you want to just illuminate the audience?
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot of interesting parts of flickering light. It's a kind of pretty cool history, but you know, the first primitive looks into flickering light are actually just sitting around a campfire. So if you've already sat around a campfire before, you kind of get into this zone where you're looking into the campfire and you just kind of go into this really peaceful and tranquil state. So we've been doing that since the beginning of time. From there, you know, that was used by a lot of different, you know, like in Greece, they used actually like a wheel with spokes that they had a light coming through and it started flickering. And, you know, in the ancient, you know, like ancient caves, there's all these kind of different rituals that were being used. In Egypt, we also had certain technologies like this. There's a lot of different cultures that have used flickering light because of the way that it helps, you know, entrain the brain. So even before there was a lot of, you know, EEG research or all of this neurology going, that people could see that flickering light can actually take you into altered states of consciousness. I mean, even if you've been, you know, driving in a car or on a train when the sun's kind of coming through the trees, people have had beautiful visions and understandings. You know, Brian Geising created the Dream Machine, which is a really cool thing with a record player and then two different kind of cylinders with holes in them that are rotating different ways and a light inside. And back in the 60s, they used to stand around and hold hands And that was very subtle. So they would take LSD and do it often. But, they also did it without any kind of substances and experienced these kind of altered states of consciousness. So there are different ways to access this. Lucia is the most, high tech and precise way. And as you said, it's kind of your brain. So you don't really want to mess around too much. It's good to kind of know a reliable way to get into this state. And again, so you can work with somebody else. You don't have to buy one of these for yourself, but if you work with a practitioner, you can actually start seeing what's in the way between you and getting into a relaxed state. And there's all kinds of things, it's like we were talking about before, the aspects of yourself, the protector, the one that's trying to make sure you don't get hurt again. And all of these kind of little guardians can be standing at the edge of your consciousness, and you can't sleep because they're afraid. Every time you start getting towards a relaxed state, they say, hey, this is not safe. Last time, don't forget, last time we got relaxed, what happened, and so even if you do meditate or you do try to do these practices, if your nervous system isn't regulated, you can't get to a deeper state of meditation. You can't get to lucid dreams. You can't get to all of these other ways of being because your nervous system doesn't feel safe being in a space where you can actually open to these other dimensions naturally.
And when you open yourself to those other dimensions, you are allowing the central nervous system to be a part of that God creator internal side, which gives you the actual frequency and the harmony of that mystical experience. And there's no longer mystified at that moment. It's a valued experience in your consciousness.
Yeah, it reminds you of who you are. And that's the really beautiful thing about the Lucia Light. It's not like you're trying to force or control yourself in any way. It's actually the flickering light with your eyes closed takes you back inside to your essence of who you are and shows you the beauty, the absolute gorgeousness of that reflection. You're an incredible multidimensional being with so much potential and energy and light that's literally coming out of you. We are bioluminescent beings. We are beings of light. All of our cells communicate through light. Light is such an essential part of our being. And this experience and other experiences, like this can remind us of that beauty within. And that's something that's very unique about it, is the colors and patterns and kind of visual geometries and other worldly experiences that you can have inside the experience are a reflection of your own consciousness, and how you feel about those is also you, and even how you feel about what these kind of tools is a reflection of your consciousness. So it's fascinating because it's like there's so many layers of how our perception allows for these things, and I've seen myself where, sometimes the things that are going to help you the most, you actually have resistance to, because there's a part of your ego that's like, I don't need help. I'm actually trying to become enlightened, but, I don't actually want any help from anything or anyone. That's a not natural way of being, and I find it very interesting because it's like, yes, definitely go to what you're attracted to. And for some people, that's just nature, and that's perfect, and that's totally enough. For some people, going to a concert with your favorite musicians and feeling the energy of the crowd and tuning into these spaces can really get you there. And for others, it's sometimes trying something new, trying something that's a little bit of an edge for you. And if that's light, then how beautiful is that? It's a great pathway.
It's not only a great pathway, but it's something simple. And I saw an interesting quote here from Lori. Seems to me these modalities are becoming available, especially to folks who don't meditate or build a fire. There's always ways to go and do this. Now there's a machine that could aid you in induction. Now, there are people that get addicted to the machines, and that's something privately, Allison, I've talked about with you, and that's some people that they have a machine and they're going full power blast all the time, and then they get overwhelmed and they expect everything has to be at that full power, although subtlety is important. Mm-hmm. I know plenty of people that have come to our retreats and used the Lucia Light and then gone out and have a fire. They're able to continue their Lucia Light experience or take their experience from the fire to the Lucia Light, as well as learning how to not combine. Like, I want everybody that uses the Lucia Light to experience it without headphones first. Like their first couple of experiences, I want them to go at least an hour before I introduce sound. Okay? and then, you know, covering them with a blanket and making sure they stay warm. That's the only thing. I don't want anything else in their system. I just want sound and the light. And then there are people that take off the sound and just have the light experience. And then they go into some other thing. Let's say we used a pulse electromagnetic therapy mat that has goggles that go over you. It intensifies the experience. They go into the hyperbaric chamber that intensifies the experience. Or they go into the float tank right after a light experience, and they have these extended states of euphoria in which they can explore their consciousness. Pairing it together, not at the same time, though. And that's my belief on how to use the Lucia Light so that it compounds the experience, especially if somebody that has traumatic events. Going from the float to the Lucia Light is extremely potent at getting somebody into that deepened state where they can explore their consciousness with a hypnotherapist.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Having these kind of back-to-back therapies is really powerful, and the system that you've created is really epic for taking people through that, you know, because that's the other thing too with some of these things, you know, it's really about, you know, there's two ways to work with creating lasting change. And one way is really by, you know, going through like a series of these different types of therapies and things. And part of that includes talking about it. You know, you got to work with somebody where you can share some of these things, where you can write some of them, and you can choose action steps to integrate in your reality. And so that could say be a week-long experience or one of Andrew's amazing retreats. I would highly recommend if you're really looking for that shift. And then from there, you also really need to do the little daily things like we were talking about before. Really, the daily practices are so essential for changing. And that's the other thing. You don't have the money to go to a retreat, then start with the daily practices. Those are an always available tool. Things like the Lucia Light and a float, or even just a float or just a Lucia Light, or whatever you can, you know, manifest in your life in that moment. It's really about using that experience to start, you know, unwinding further, you know, to inform your daily practice. The state that you can get into in the light isn't just a high that you can never return to. It's a reminder that that's within you all the time. The light sessions are, you know, realigning your nervous system and showing you a pathway to get to a state within yourself that's always available, and maybe not as intense and colorful as the Lucia Light amplification of that state. But, you know, working with the Lucia Light, before I worked with Lucia Light, I tried to meditate, you know, but I didn't really. It was just kind of like wading through my thoughts the whole time. And I'm like, okay, I guess this is the practice, you know. And after the Lucia Light, you know, yeah, it's not like every time the second I sit down, I just blast into another universe, but often I do. You know, I have amazing connections with my guides. I feel my energy like rising. I feel like openness of my crown. I feel a connection with everything. I get downloads. I see my future. I see potentialities. I see ways that I can work on myself. It's like a medicine journey every morning, you know, and some mornings it's not, you know, some mornings it's like, okay, wow, yeah, you're tired today, or like this is going on, or this one thought keeps coming up. You know, it's not always directly there, but it's the Lucia Light shows you a pathway. And then meditation is the practice where you continue to work with that energy.
It's building the muscle structure.
Yeah.
Well, we're near the end of the show. Why don't you give everyone a way to get a hold of you, Allison, and so they can have more information from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do, you know, sessions with people too, intuitive kind of coaching sessions, as well as, you know, offering light sessions, which is one of my, you know, my favorite tool. And how you can find me is on my website, lucialightexperience.com. My email is allisonlucialight@gmail.com. I'll type it into the group chat. And yeah, I would love to hear from you. I am obviously very passionate about what I do. I'm here to, you know, I used to work in development and education, and then I realized the best way that I can personally enact change is by holding space for other people to have their own process and to see themselves in that, without, you know, giving any of my own energy away, just calling through the divine. It's super beautiful. And I'm passionate about consciousness expansion and all the different tools and ways that we can do it. And I really, really believe in the Lucia Light as being a tool that's helped me. And I've really seen so many different clients have such epic progress with it. And I'm just really grateful. Thanks for having me here, Andrew. And
Oh, thank you for coming on. We always get to ride the motorcycle of consciousness really fast and go into some super fun ways. I know a lot of people, the chat room's been buzzing with questions and people having light bulbs turn on with them. David, you want to give a way for people to get a hold of you down in Barbados?
Oh, yes. Let me type that into the chat myself. info@unifiedhealthsystems.com. So this was really fun. Allison, nice to see you. I put my email in there in case you're ready to do retreats in Barbados. It was really nice seeing you guys again.
Wonderful. Allison, hang on the line. Robert's gonna take us out into the breakup room. We're gonna have a post-show talk. Anyways, thanks a lot, everyone. We will be back next Thursday. And if you're interested in having a private session with me, look inside your email. All right, everyone, thank you so much. We will be back next Thursday.
bye.
Each different bubble of reality is true. A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma. Nudge, nudge. It's the Holy Grail. Improvise. Mysterious. It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.
Hello, let's create, let's co-create, and let's change this world with love. No matter if you're from Alpha Centauri or Earth, we all began with the same birthing process. We live in a limited point of view. Living the mystical life daily is about striving for the unlimited point of view. Each day, each human being gets an infinite amount of choices. Living the mystical life daily is about facing obstacles and challenges. The level of awareness that you are working at means you have a responsibility to be equal with it. How does one truly let go of expectation? You can make the moment that you wake up to the moment you go to sleep sacred. The keys to success: choice, 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 and choice.